I know it seems like I'm being precious and fiddly with these joints, but it's important to get these ones as accurate as possible, because even just a slight difference in length of these, circumference of these rings, will really throw off when we go to start stacking them together. You know, if this one's slightly smaller and this one's slightly bigger, then you're going to have big gaps. Or, you know, if the reverse is true, then we're going to have overlaps from one ring to the next. And this one turned out really great. Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to make sure I get these rings as close as I can on these particular joints. I test fit these two parts because this part does have a slight conical shape to it. Might be a little, you can see that on camera very well, but so this is the piece that's going to join up in the middle of the body sphere, and I want to make sure I get the sides right. I don't want to flip it around and have it the wrong direction. I mean, once I start gluing them together, I think it become pretty obvious. Like, this is wrong because it fits way too far inside that, as you can see. So this goes with the bigger side, joins up with the back half of the body. So that essentially is the middle seam of this body. It slopes down on both sides. So I'm going to make sure I get the slightly smaller diameter side. Is what's going to join up with this next conical section. But you know, you can see that when you test fit them, they should fit. If you go backwards, you're not going to be able to get that to fit. So, but you want to do that before you start gluing stuff together. When you're putting these rings together, like I said before, you kind of tack one side with a couple of tabs, tack the opposite side with a couple of tabs. This is the first one, easiest to do as the first one because it's got that seam you can line up. The back one, you just kind of do the opposite side of that. And in order to make sure that it's like, you know, not skewed off to one side or the other, you could count the tabs and go around and find the exact middle one or middle two and go with that. Or I was just kind of eyeballing it and checking see how much it bulges on one side and then bulges on the other, and I was getting those just about equal. And then same idea here on this quarter side one. When I'm tacking it down, I just see how much it's bulging on either side there, and trying to get them as equal as I can, and then eyeballing it's pretty good. And it looks like it's not going to fit well, you know, like there's just going to be a bulge, and it's a little tough it's kind of tight. Almost looks like it's not fitting well, like this ring is too small or this one's too big. But we had the same issue where you were seeing the same thing on this one, but when it comes time to actually go through and glue down all the tabs in between where you tacked it, it turns out pretty good. So like in this case here, once I go and actually add glue to these tabs and glue it down, I think what's happening is the paper is absorbing some water from the glue and swelling a little bit, so it's making it a little bit bigger. and it's also making it softer, so it's a little more pliable, and so it just kind of eases into shape and ends up closing that gap nicely. So I think we'll see that as we go through and glue the rest of this ring. And for these side ones, we've got these circles on the texture of the body that are helping me figure out where the quarter points are. And I'm just kind of going, seems like that tab is right in the middle, so I'm grabbing it and the two to the side and tacking those. If you're building a model that doesn't have, such convenient markings, what I've done in the past is I'll actually just count out the tabs, find the ones that are in the middle, and then mark them with a pen so I don't lose track of them and I know which ones to glue. So like I said, I'm just kind of eyeballing the bulge on either side. You can see this side is a little bit more bigger of a gap than this side, so that means I think it's skewed a little too far this way, so I'm going to just push it a little bit. The ring on the right here, the smaller ring, push it a little bit further away. Yeah, see, there we go. So now that I've added glue to all the intermediate tabs, that seam is closed up nicely. All those big gaps have disappeared. Yeah, pleased with that. Looks great. This piece goes around the inner ring of the eye, so on the front half of the body here. This piece goes there, this goes around the inside of that, and it slopes inward. As you can see here on this finished ghost, this right here, this is this piece, and then this is this piece inside here. As you can see, it the sphere shape comes out here and then it slopes inward towards the eye. So that's why I'm rolling this piece this way, which is the opposite of the way I was rolling these other pieces, right? Where we roll these this way, so the texture's on the outside of the cone. We're going to roll this one so the texture's on the inside of the cone. Alright, so I had to go with this. You saw me kind of fiddling with it earlier. I was having trouble getting everything to line up, and it was being really fiddly, and my fingers were not being as agile as I wanted them to be, so I had to kind of take that off camera and mess with it for a while. You saw me start by I had this piece was separate, and I was working on adding this inner ring to this piece. I wasn't getting it to work out right, so I ended up taking the inner ring off, separating those two, and then attaching this bigger ring to the actual sphere piece that I had already completed. And that let me actually get that, and it held its shape a lot better, so I could attach that ring much more easily. And as you can see, I got it on there pretty good. Still took a little fiddling, took me a while to get that, but there it is. It's in there now. So the next part is there's a ring of paper that goes on the inside that kind of makes a bridge between the inner edge of this smaller inner ring and then bridges over to the inside of this spherical face. So that's going to be this piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out and install that as well. All right, so I've cut out that little ring, that backing ring, and that fits inside of there like that. And as you can see, so these, the tabs that are folded under on that small inner ring glue against this face, and then these tabs that are bent slightly this way glue up against the inside face of the eye, and that just tends to reinforce this inner ring here, and also gives a place to glue the other parts of the eye, like the lens or the window and everything else. So this one, I cut it out, and you just want to center it on there as best you can. It looks like the best that I can center it, there's still a little bit of paper that's visible through here. So I think I'm going to cut out the inside of this ring just to shave more. Just open it up a little bit more so that there's not this obvious amount of paper that you can see through there. And then I'm also going to use a marker to color this face and the edge so that if there is any paper visible from the outside, it'll be darkened and much more difficult to see. So let's go ahead and do that. Just got a black marker here. You could use a Sharpie, but a Sharpie kind of has like a, it's black, but it has kind of like this, when light reflects off of it, it has kind of a red or purplish sheen to it, which is kind of a cool effect, but not really what I'm going for here. So I've just got this black craft marker, which is just as black, but it doesn't have that weird effect. All right. So as you can see, I just shaved off the tiniest width of material from the inside edge, but that was really all I needed. It's only sticking into view that little bit amount. So let's check that again. See how it looks now. Oh, yep, that's much better. Trouble with the tabs here. Come on. Some of these tabs are sticking up, getting in the way. There we go. All right. Okay. Yep, that does look better. I don't know that you can actually see that on camera, but okay. So we'll just use this marker again to catch that inside edge that I cut away. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to glue that in place. All right, so I've got that piece in here now. You'll see it there. Might not be too easy to see. Doesn't stand out against the others, but it's there. And it's looking pretty good. You might see some of the tabs in here might overlap with some of the other tabs on that piece. That's okay. You're not going to be able to see that, and there's enough glue area there that'll be nice and strong. So that's not too big of an issue. So there we go. There's that piece there. Now definitely don't want to close this up at this point. There's still more to do. We've got to actually put the pieces for the eye, the iris in, and want to just leave these apart for probably as long as we can, just because once you close it up, it's there's no going back.